Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Psychology and Spirituality, a Bridge to a Better Life discussion. I'm your host, Marcia Trajano, and with me today are Dr. Anahy Fonseca, Jussara Korngold, and Ann Sinclair. Hi, everyone. Good to see you again. Well, they joined me today to talk about a very interesting topic, and there may be several nuances for us to talk in the next few minutes together, but it's all about discovering the shadow. And I'm really excited, Dr. Naid, to see what we can talk about in terms of what is the shadow, what are the other approaches, what does gratitude have to do with your shadow. But, anyways, if this is the first time you're watching this sorry, podcast-like program, please note that we meet weekly, and our discussions are really based on the works by Joanna de Angelis, and they offer a safe space for us to confront, compare, correlate, and expand spirituality concepts from a psychological lens. And we are here to bring insights, maybe some tips, and love to see also some real world advice so that you and all of us can lead a better life. Please note our program is sponsored by AME Brazil, the TV Mansão do Caminho, the United States Spiritist Federation, and International Spiritist Council. Please make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already. And if you need additional information, check us out. You can find us at spiritist.us. Also, if you have any questions, feedback, comment, please put on the chat and we'll talk about it today if we have time or at a later episode. So today we are really excited to be here. So I'm going to pass the ball and let's hear from you, Anahy. Tell us a little bit about the shadow. What is the shadow?
Okay, hello everyone. So, just so we can understand a little bit of this Jung's concept of the shadow, that when he talks about the ego as being the center of consciousness, okay, as opposed to the self in a way, that the self for Jung is our higher consciousness, our transcendent consciousness, that it's deep inside of the psyche of the unconscious. But in opposition, in a certain way, is the ego, okay, at the center of our consciousness. Let's say the guy who is doing the job of adapting to this life, to learning, remembering things, um, talking as I'm talking to you now, connecting things in my mind. Okay, so the center of our consciousness, the ego. But to adapt to this world, I have to feel loved. As a child, for instance, the ego of the child is very frail because it's growing with the child, right? So it needs a lot of reassuring, a lot of mother and father and caretakers saying, "Oh, you did well. Oh, how nice you did that. Oh, let's try not to do that because it won't be good for your health," for instance. So, education, but also saying, and especially affirming to the child that what she's feeling is this, what she is thinking is that. In a sense, for instance, let's think of the baby, the small baby has an ego because it's relating to the mother, right? Is relating to the family. It's hearing voices. is having the, for instance, experience of hunger, and it's crying because it's feel hungry, right? And then it needs the mother, the baby needs the mother to recognize the crying, that it's a hunger, the cry of the baby with is feeling hungry, so that the mother is going to give the baby a bottle of milk or breastfeed, or some, if the baby is able to eat some nice fruits and this and that. And then the child little by little recognize, okay, if I vocalize, let's say, if I scream, or if I cry in this way, my mother or my father, my caretaker, is going to bring me food. This is really important because the organism has to survive. You know, hunger for the little baby, it's a threat for survival. So it, all these experiences, they are in the brain and they are in our minds, and according to that psychology, Jung and Joanna, they are deep in our psyche. Okay, we bring with us. So but to adjust, to adapt in the world, and to make sure that my mom is going to bring me, let's say in this example, the warm milk that I want, okay, or the food that I want, if I am a child of 2 3, the child will learn that if it's the child, he or she screams a lot in a way that it bothers mother, for instance, then maybe it will take more time until the bottle of milk comes. So I have to try to say, to adapt in a way that I don't bother my mom and she realizes that I'm hungry. It's just a simple example of how I have to adapt in the world. So to be loved, to have my needs fulfilled, okay? And to have the friendship of the people that I value, for instance, to be later on in life a good employee, to have the acceptance of my colleagues. I have to behave in a way that people like me. So all of this makes the ego, creates, let's say, kind of a social mask, or a part of the ego that, and it's conscious, that there are values that say, okay, I adapt with this, people will love me, I will have a lot of friends, I will have the job that I want. But what happens when there are feelings, thoughts, fantasies that are against my social mask? Okay, so Jung called the social mask the persona because of the Greek theater. The mask of the ancient Greek theater was the persona. So he called the persona, this part of the ego, this complex related actually to the ego, that it's created to adaptation. He called the persona, and in opposition to the persona, everything that the ego feels as threatening this adaptation to life and to my environment, then the ego will repress, will deny, will defend itself, and will create in the unconscious an area that, with this repressed material, that Jung called the shadow, our shadow aspects. I don't know if it's okay, or would you like to some questions at this point?
I'd love to ask some questions, but before I ask questions, let's just go ahead and open for Jussara and Sinclair. And I'm going to just start it with both of you. What do you think about this social mask, right? And let's remember, when did Jung talk about this? Beginning of the century, right? So it's very refreshing for all of us to see that. ideas stemming back to from Greek theater as the idea of a mask, right, as a drama to put a new persona, and how does it fit so well in the definition of a psychological complex you mentioned, right, Anahy? But Jussara, why don't you do you have any thoughts about this before we break it down further?
Not at the moment, actually. I'm still reflecting about everything that Anahy was saying. I,
Yes.
I was even thinking about, that I had the chance to go to the youngest house and some of the things that I saw there, but I would like to comment later.
Okay, very good. So we're gonna just get carve some time for you to talk about when I think it's in Zurich in Switzerland, right? So you can talk to all of us who are here watching this about your experience there. And any thoughts?
Yeah, I think, thank you. Um, I don't know if other people have the same experience or journey as myself. Uh, Whereas, like the ideas of psychology, I mean, never studied psychology at school or university or anything. So I mean, I read books like self-help books and articles and things like that, and I think Anai is put it together very nicely for me, for my level of understanding. And just thinking about, because we do feel this conflict. I mean, I speak for myself. This conflict of, like, you are presenting a face that you know is the acceptable face, what your parents expect from you, or your teachers expect from you, or your, like, say, your employer. But behind it, it's, there used to be, oh my gosh, it just came to my mind, long time ago when I was a teenager, there was a magazine, a comic magazine, and it used to have cartoons where it would have a person walking like that, and the shadow, the actual, like, shadow from the sun, like the person was like, oh yes, that's lovely, and the shadow's going down, 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 doing exactly opposite. And
Mhm.
so just I had completely forgotten about that. But sometimes you say, oh yes, that's lovely, thank you so much, and inside you're saying something completely different. Oh, I hate you, go away. And you're just thinking, am I a crazy person that I am behaving in one way, but I have all these strong feelings inside me that I am repressing because I know that they're not acceptable. And it's, I don't know if other people feel like that, but I mean, that's my experience. I mean, I go through life quite okay, and it's like I can keep control, like all of us, everything is super nice. But if somebody just pushes you that little bit too much, boom, out comes the lion, roaring. And then you go like, whoa, where did that come from? And
Yeah,
it's because we don't really know. It's not that we don't know, it's like we don't have a relationship perhaps with these things that are in our shadow. We just put them under the carpet, but they're there and they're festering and they're part of us. So just trying to find that, yes, that, what do we do with this, when it starts coming up? Because if we start giving way to, to manifesting these darker thoughts or things like that, where will it all end? And so it feels like a dangerous place to allow things to come up, yet when we don't expect it, I think they come out and they bite you on the heel, kind of thing. So I'd be quite keen to think about, how can we build a relationship with what's in our shadows without sort of crumbling in society, without, becoming a person who can't relate to others, or you can't just go around saying everything you think. It's not polite, isn't it? So it's finding that balance. I find it quite interesting, and I find that I'm quite ignorant for myself about how that actually happens, or how we could take that forward in a constructive way.
yeah. Can I just add something? And so thank you both of you. To me, Anaí is first of all, we do the shadow gets a bad rap, right? The shadow is this first of all, even the word, right? There's this darkness around the word, and many of us, as we are not. experts like you, Anahy, in psychology, as we're studying psychology, and most important in our case, we're doing a review of how spirituality and psychology may meet. It's important for us to discover what is the shadow and what are the sides of it. But one of the things that I find it quite interesting, Anne, is just today I was doing a bit of a discussion on the book Jesus in Our Days. It's the first book of Joanna de Angelis psychological series, and it has one chapter called Jesus in Ingratitude. So it really talks about the notion of having or not gratitude toward life, and the notion of acceptance, right? So this is more of a cultural aspect and behavioral aspect of how to go about life. And I just want to bring here, before I bring back to you, Anahy, the fact that in that book, Joanna uses exactly your terms, and she talks about this festering sore that we have inside of us, which is the all those repressed behaviors, emotions, and thoughts outside of our conscious mind or ego. But one of the things that she also says that I would like to conclude here is the fact that in nature we all are good, all of us. We are, our essence is goodness, is justice, is the ability to give and to honor, and all of those what we call positive qualities. But we are unable to fully express that because we are still in a very youthful state, right? I think in an earlier time, and you talked about, I feel like it's time for us, as if we're mothers of this young teenager. Come on, wake up, get up, and become aware of all your needs as a mature individual, psychologically speaking, versus this very unawakened, very unaware person. But, anyways, back to you, Anahy. Tell us a little bit more about, you mentioned what is the shadow, but is there, for example, a positive and a negative, or is it all negative?
Okay, lots of interesting things. But coming first to Anne, I think she talks about something very important, and then it would be a negative part of the shadow, because since the ego represses these contents, what happens and denies and represses, and it's there in the personal unconscious. Okay,
Mhm.
so what happens is that there's an energy there, because the energy, the psychic energy is in all the psyche. Okay, so when I repress a content, I'm not working consciously with it. So it gets like, we could say, an energy is there. It has to go somewhere. So what we know is that the problem of repressing the shadow is that the shadow will be projected onto others. Okay,
Unconsciously, right? Unconsciously,
unconsciously. Yeah,
right?
because it's all unconscious. Only the persona is conscious. Okay, the shadow is unconscious. Is a complex. We say like the twin brothers, the persona and the shadow, the good one and the bad one, or like a Marvel, a Hulk, right?
Mhm.
I was at once here. So there is the Dr. Banner, the good part, okay, the persona, and then the Hulk, okay. But as Marcia said, the Hulk is not all bad. He's very aggressive. The aggression is like Anne said, okay, it's repressed. So when it gets out, my goodness, okay, could kill if you don't pay attention. But there is good also in him. Okay, and because also in the culture is a superhero, the Hulk and Dr. Bennett, both of them. So one of the things that is important is that if I repress anything that I repress, I'm not working consciously. I'm not putting some light on the content. And then it gets strong. And especially, it's not that only it gets strong, but it gets like autonomous, because it has life, his own life, like the Hulk. Okay, if you touch it in the right, and if make, if you can make Dr. Banner angry, okay, then the Hulk will come. Because if we use this analogy, this metaphor to the shadow aspect. So the complex of the shadow, Jung called a complex, like subpersonalities within the unconscious. So when something touches it, then the ego doesn't have a control. That's why, as Anne said, oh, something, no, if I just leave it there out, it's going to be a monster. But the ego is not even thinking clearly, consciously, subconsciously, okay, because it's repressing, but not consciously thinking, oh, I cannot leave this out of, because if it were already conscious, okay, the ego would have control. Then we are talking maturity. Then we are being less than teenagers. Then we are maturing our egos to, okay, I have this aspect of my personality that I don't like, but I have to accept that they are mine. Acceptance. We were talking these days about acceptance. And
Mhm.
Joanna talks a lot about that. I have to accept that they are mine, so I can stop, sorry, defending myself against these contents and look at it. A spiritist knowledge bring a lot of, Jussara can tell us a little about that, or a lot about that, depending on the time, that we have to work in ourselves, right? To evolve spiritually speaking. And we have to face ourselves. That's why Marshall was saying that we need to bring psychology and spirituality and spiritist knowledge. Is Joanna that it's the main author that is doing that. We have to bring them together so we know better how to be more compassionate with ourselves, accepting our shadow aspect. So, for instance, let's say something really that people can understand. Let's say that I have an aspect that I'm sometimes envious of people. Okay. Oh, I wish I had that hair. I wish I was able to talk like that person or something like that. But I cannot accept this because I talk about spirituality and I talk about psychology. I'm such a good person, right? So if I see somebody else talking, let's say I love the way Anne talked about the shadow. And I got a little envious of Anne, but I cannot be envious of Anne because she talks so well, and she could be so clear to people that are listening to us. Then immediately, because it doesn't fit with my persona, the doctor and the person that knows psychology and this and that. So what's going to happen? The ego is going to repress.
Mhm.
I don't feel envious at all. I never felt in my life. This is in the person. This is in the shadow. It's already repressed. So what happens? Of course, this okay is repressed material, but then we go on talking this and that suddenly, for instance, I can make a Freudian slip. We say in
Yeah,
English,
yeah, yeah.
right? And I want to say, for instance, as I said, hunger, for instance, and I say angry, okay, because I was angry at Anne,
Mm.
because I was envious. How come she has capability. She's able to do something, speak in a more clear way than I am, and then it's a Freudian slip. And maybe I start giving, for instance, questions. I start making questions for Anne. A lot of people do that. If you can connect, like in academic, university, colleagues, students, even in high school, whatever. I was envious. I could not face this fact within myself. So what I did, I was envious towards Anne, and then I start making difficult questions for Anne to answer. Oh, Anne, but what do you think about this and that? Or trying to make her feel uncomfortable. That's the projection of the shadow, because I was uncomfortable with my envious aspect. Okay, I think this is quite clear, because, and there's no problem being envious, because everybody feels once in a while. The problem is repressing. The problem is not facing our shadow. Okay, I was envious. I didn't like that about myself, but I am. So if I can feel, I can forgive myself. I can be compassionate towards myself, then I'm not going to project. And then at some point, I will even be glad because Anne talked so well, And I will say, oh, when I grow up, I will try to be like Anne, for instance, or I try to copy some, but of course, pay attention, not I over identifying, okay, I started because we are doing a lot of podcasts. So then eventually we start, oh, I like the way Jussara said that, the way Marcia said that, the way, and then I start to like copying. It's fine, people. The only thing that it's not fine is if I think I am like, I have to be like that. Otherwise, people won't love me, won't even want to listen to the podcast when I'm in it, because I have to be like this or that. That's the problem with the social medias, for instance, the celebrities, the influencers. I have to be that. I have to have a lot of likes. People have to like me. And what if I'm not feeling okay that day? I don't want to give a like. I didn't like. I don't even know why I didn't like, but I want to give myself time to think about that. That's step by step. We are growing in consciousness and we are going spiritually, as Joanna said, because we are facing our inner truth. Doesn't matter how ugly, or to go to what Marcia said, maybe how beautiful it is. And for some, for instance, talents can be repressed by the ego and can be in the shadow, can be aspects of the shadow. For instance, if I have a talent, let's say I grow up in a family that a lot of my parents or a lot of people are in the business or deal with numbers, and I don't know a thing about math. I don't like math. And I like to draw, for instance. I draw beautifully. It's not true, okay, people. It's just an example. I'm awful drawing. But for instance, I'm beautiful draw. I do, beautiful drawings and this and that. And then I would love to study that, to be an artist. And at some point when I'm a child, I talk to my mom. Oh, I would love to go and learn how to draw. What? No, this is so silly. You are not going to earn any money drawing. No, never. This and that. How stupid, and so on and so on. So the child will learn, or the teenager, whatever, that this is bad, that it doesn't help to be loved and accepted by the environment. It could be among friends, for instance, teenagers in high school or whatever, and with friends. And then I'm going to repress. And then this beautiful talent that I have of drawing, of make images,
Mm.
The psyche works with images. So when I make images, I'm co-creating reality of the psyche. I'm getting in contact with the deep, with the archetypes that we can have
Yeah.
been talking about when we are talking about. So our human inheritance, and I'm giving, our beautiful artists. I'm making people happy, but no, this is awful. This is in the shadow. I cannot deal with that because I'm not going to be loved by this and that and accepted in my community and in my social cycle. So I
My,
think I talked a little bit about the
yeah.
two.
No, no. My thoughts were drawing is a good example of talent that is repressed. Like those, what comes to my mind, Anaïs, because as we know, our society is changing so fast. It's evolving in its concepts of what's right and what's wrong, what's accepted behavior, and what's not. So if I go back, for example, into my grandmothers and great grandmothers accepted set of behaviors. They're very, especially for women, very harsh, right? No, you cannot speak, you cannot interrupt, you cannot voice an opinion, and God forbid, you cannot have any expression of sexuality, right? So those are at the time very much there's a curtailing even on how you use your gestures or how you sit, how you laugh, etc., etc. And I think that a very expensive type of person that was there or would be there is repressed, and but there is an energy, right, Anaí? There's an energy to keep it repressed. So it's not just a closed loop mechanism, if you will, that, okay, not accepted by my the culture that I'm inserted, it's not accepted by the age, it's not accepted by my family, repress, right? There are consequences to have so much of us inserted into that unconscious.
Yes, there's a lot of energy spent in
Mm.
repressing material.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine about the shadow aspects that threaten so much the ego.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is very important what you were saying, Marcia, because of the past. For instance, you're talking about women, right? All the repression
Mm-hmm.
historically that we suffered. But then, can you imagine when this repression were out,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it's because what Joanna says and Jung also says that our personal shadow, that it's in the personal unconscious, is connected through, of course, the self. Our higher consciousness also has a dark side for it. As Joanna says, the self for Joanna is our spirit. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
and our spirit is evolving. Of course, there are some shadow that's why we are here in this life, trying to learn more, to evolve. And it's also connected to the collective shadow. Okay, in this transpersonal unconscious where we are all interconnected. So this is very important because many centuries of repression, can you imagine collectively,
Mm-hmm.
when this repression goes out, okay, now it's accepted. Now we have all the rights and now we can do everything. One of the things that we know the consciousness evolve in a way is like we are in a very dual state.
Mm-hmm.
So the balance between the opposites. So something that it's really repressed now can, okay, it's totally out in the open. If it's not worked as we are talking through compassion, through understanding, through, we are going to talk a little bit, if we have time, gratitude, as Joanna says, to everything that happens to us, because gratitude is love in action. as I understand Joanna's teachings. Okay, and the action that interconnects everything, that it's among all of us when we have gratitude and we express gratitude. So it's within us, it's interconnecting all our and balancing all our aspects, including the shadow aspects, and it's also outside of us, balancing all the energy among us. So what happened is that if we don't do this learning process and bring illuminating the shadow, bringing little by little consciousness and reflection, in the display of evolution, what happens suddenly? The repression goes out. Now it's okay to do whatever I want. Then now I can do, if I am a woman, I can do whatever I want, literally. I can say this and that, treat somebody badly.
Mhm.
If I feel, if I felt that I was treated badly. So one example that I give you that it shocked me, it was a synchronicity, because I was in I went to the movies yesterday, and I'm not going to say because I don't want to be unethical, but it was a movie trailer before the movie. I won't say the name, but it was for children. And there are the show small children playing with dolls, baby dolls, all this stuff, and say, oh, in the past, children played with baby dolls, la la la. Okay, I said, all right. And then suddenly I think they wanted to do an analogy to the Kubrick's 2001
Yeah,
Odyssey in
yeah,
space.
yeah.
And suddenly there is this huge legs, and the camera goes like this, and it's a gigantic doll, woman, whatever. And then so, wow, this is it. We want that. Okay, a new doll. But then the children, the little girls, that what shocked me, grab the baby dolls and start smashing them, like killing them, the baby dolls, killing them. Okay, smashing into pieces. I think the analogy was because of the monkeys and the 2001 Odyssey.
Yeah,
The,
yeah,
the monkeys or the primitive man, right?
yeah, yeah.
But I thought this, the collective unconscious, for me at least, that was the shadow aspect of all this movement of liberation of women. We don't have to smash baby dolls to say that another one is okay, is nice, and I like that better or whatever. Why do I have to, attack a part of what is of our nature, biologically speaking and
Correct. Hmm.
archetypically speaking, smash into pieces to say that that's bad? Then we are creating another shadow, you see?
Hmm.
So that's why we need to illuminate shadow with compassion, gratitude, as Joanna says, for everything that we have gone through, because it's a learning process. And I think maybe Jussara can help us with the spiritist part of the learning process.
There is so much that you talked, and but there is one thing that really stuck with me about the repression. And when you talked about the spiritual aspect of all that, and it is one of the things that we say when we are in this process of self improvement. We have to self awake as well.
Hmm.
So I have to know who I am, and I have to accept what I am, not meaning I have to be stuck in there. Right. So, but then I was thinking also, because you said, about the repression, and how somehow, because of times, because of behaviors, set of behaviors, what is allowed today and what is not allowed yesterday, um, people all of a sudden go and give way to their repression. So it is another problem, because when I am repressing, it means I do not reflect about that. I do not even want to understand what it is, and work on it. And when it is, let's say, allowed, even if it's not proper, and I just go and give away to that, I'm not using reason. So all of a sudden now I can do that because everyone is doing that, but I'm not questioning myself whether this is ethical or not, whether this is good to me or not. So I was thinking about all of that, and the implications that it has with not only, and I mean, it's so fantastic that we have this podcast, is psychology and spirituality, because this is where they really meet, in the sense that you as a psychiatrist is showing the negative aspect of us, repressing something. And spiritually speaking, the negativity as well is, while I'm in denial, I cannot work the positive aspects of my life. It is going to be there, and it's going to show, and it's going to backfire someday.
Yes, exactly. We have some time left.
Yes, yes, we do.
Yes, is an example that I was going to give you. There is a book that Marcia will show later on to everybody, but it's called Illuminating the Shadow. And the author, uh, it's a sentence here that I would like to read to you by Carl Jung. He writes, it's right in the beginning, he has, "What is the shadow?" And then he puts Jung's sentence, "Where love rules, there is no will to power. And where power predominates, there there love is lacking. The one is the shadow of the other."
Mm.
So I think this is it, it's really nice for us to think, because then now we started talking about our personal shadows, but you
Mhm.
saw that we got in the point to talk about collective shadow. So this empowerment stuff, that everybody has power to do everything, when talking about depth psychology and also reading Joanna, I get really worried about that, about this kind of vocabulary that we are using nowadays. In a sense, okay, we have to empower ourselves with our personal, not only our personal strengths, a mature ego, but with our spiritual
Yeah.
potentials that, as Marcia said, we are, remember what she read about in Joanna's book just the other day, as she was telling us, we are light. The transcendent is light. The darkness in us is ignorance of the light. Okay, we could say that spiritually speaking, because psychologically speaking, we have to discern what is, we are here to learn that what is good and what is not good, what's light and what's not light, so that we can make more light, right? That we are here to learn how to co-create in the light. Remember that we are children of the light, of the one, the transcendent one that we call God, or whatever people want to call it. So I would love to hear you about this sentence of Jung, that where love rules, there is no will to power. And where power predominates, there love is lacking.
And I love that because I think it poses to the majority of us who perhaps may not have been exposed to Jung the idea that the opposite of love, that's the first thing, right? The opposite of love is not hatred or even indifference, it's power,
Yeah.
which goes back to its power because it is an ego requirement to be a controlling force in our lives, right? And it's there to protect us, by the way. Let's not make the ego like the shadow, the
That
the
guy.
bad guy, right? No, it's not. It's there to protect us, but it's really mistaken because it's protecting us from a material perspective, and that material perspective is really reflection of the here and now. And for us, Anahy, and we talk about we're all in the West, right? And what is the West, culturally speaking? We're individualistic societies. We are materialistic societies, right? We are a consumer society, and it's just very interesting because I was reading that only 10 years ago, there is this new report on the happiness report was created 10 years ago in 2013. So to date, we keep having those index of what is a self assessed index of happiness, and the Nordics keep getting the majority out of the 10 top happiest countries are Switzerland and Finland. Finland is the top one, Iceland, etc., right? And we keep thinking, what makes it a difference on those countries from the others? And it's in addition to many things, but it's no longer the zest for power. It's that more of a I'm here with nature and I'm very grateful. So there's a back to gratitude, the sense of because I'm part of this context that we're all responsible for being happy together, if you will. I need to make sure in this case that Anne is happy, not just me, that Jussara is happy, that you and I are happy. And by focusing at that, I bring about issues of emotional intelligence, of empathy, right? Of paying attention. And my ego or egocentric tendencies start to diminish naturally. So I love that the whole component of power, ego, and gratitude all together. Anyone wants to talk about it?
Well, you've done a wonderful job, Marcia.
Jasada, any words? We are coming to the end of our time, unfortunately.
I just like to,
Yeah,
when talking about power and love, I just
yeah,
came to me the image of Jesus,
yeah.
and it's like we struggle to understand Jesus' message as much as it's been divulged and multiplied, over the centuries. But when I think about it, the more I try to understand what he's saying, about love oneself, love your neighbor, love God. So it's love, like, what is this? This is the power that moves everything. That you know, you're not going to conquest love through power. So it's letting go. It's the opposite. So you're letting go to let the love flow. And I think coming into the gratitude that we were talking about before, which is love emotion. And sometimes people say, no, well, I can't be grateful for something because it wasn't very nice, let's say, or was unpleasant. But if you can see through it and see the value of the lesson, because actually everything that happens on earth to us is a lesson. And if we learn the lesson, we move. we advance. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
the learning the lesson is not getting it necessarily right, of success and failure and power and all these kind of things, but it's understanding, okay, by doing this I get that, not quite what I wanted. Okay, I've learned that, so I can move on and try something slightly different. And it doesn't matter, I don't need to get it right first time, because we've got eternity to learn everything and to develop. And I just like the image of a flower to open. It takes the time that it takes. It needs the sun, it needs the nutrients, it needs the earth, it needs the seasons. And we as spirits, we need the seasons of the incarnations to help us to perceive all this, the variety of things that come our way as a sort of multi-sensory learning experience. And we take it away from, let's say, of interpreting things through the ego, of things like the hurt being done to me, the suffering imposed on me by others, by God, by nature, whatever, and say, no, this is how it is. This is the impact of life on me through my body, teaching my spiritual being through the body. This is our experience of an incarnation. I think that, I mean, not for 1 minute talking about anybody else's pain or difficulties, but just speaking about my own experience of pains or difficulties. It, taking on this attitude of love, acceptance, of gratitude changes everything.
Absolutely.
And life
Absolutely.
goes through the same, but you don't suffer it in the same way.
Yeah.
I have
We
to
we
say,
are at end. We have 1 minute. Go ahead, Jussara. Yeah.
which is after Marcia told not Marcia, Anne said something about, Jesus comes to mind. Um, what came to my mind, since we are talking about love and power, was exactly the meeting between Jesus and Pontius Pilate.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful.
So, what happened to them after, right? So, there was the meeting of love and power.
Yeah.
Uh, one
Mm.
was crucified and, resurrected, living eternally, and the other one, there are so many reports of suicide, etc. But he definitely he lost his power. So as soon as you said that, I mean that image came popping.
That is awesome. We are at time. So I just want to say thank you, Anahy, for a really interesting and easy to understand explanation of what is the shadow and the relationship with gratitude. Jussara, thank you, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.